Today, we have Brian Gosselin here at Adirondack Bigfoot. We appreciate you, your time. I bow to you. Definitely the legend in the area. We're in Fort Anne, New York, but Whitehall is where you're from.
Yeah.
And that's where your experience happened. So what I'd like to do today is just kind of spend a little time with you, get to know you a little bit, let our viewers get to know you a little bit.
It's nice to meet you, by the way.
Good to meet you. Yes, very much. We chatted a little bit in the beginning before we turned the camera on, but Brian, and feel free to, anything that you don't want to talk about, you don't have to. If there's anything you'd like to, feel free to bring it up at any time. If there's any questions you have for me, feel free to jump in and ask questions of me too as well. I'm here for that too. So if you could kick it off by letting us know a little bit about you. Who is Brian? So other than the myth and the legend.
Yeah, legend in my own mind, I guess. But anyway, my name's Brian Gosselin. I'm a former police officer from Whitehall, New York, and I was a police officer at the time of the incident. Volunteer firefighters, security, construction, you name it. Now I guess you could call me a migrant worker. I've been working for this guy in an apple orchard. I'm very experienced with pruning apple trees and whatnot. I've been with him for almost 26 years now.
Wow.
But I keep myself going. I think that's why I'm still above ground, to be honest with you.
Yeah.
I like riding motorcycles, fishing, hunting.
Yeah.
Spend a lot of time in the woods, and now it's more time in the woods doing Sasquatch investigations than it is hunting.
Yeah, I bet.
But we've done well. Mentioned my book as my God, I can't even think of the name of my book right now.
Abner Road?
Abair Road.
Abair.
The true story.
Yeah.
It's the reason we wrote the book. My wife said it's about time we sat down and write your story. I'm the one that had the encounter. There was another gentleman with me, not the same car, but he was a state trooper. But anyway, to go back to August 1976.
August 76, just so you know, my birthday is December 76.
Oh, yeah.
So a few months before I was born.
So I was working.
Yeah.
This is the night before my encounter. It was after midnight, not too long after midnight. And when you work in a small town, you get to know everybody that's out that time in the morning. And
Sure.
the sounds of their vehicles, especially the little hot rods. And I said, I was operating radar, Route 4 in William Street. And I heard this truck coming down William Street, hell bent for leather. It's a 25-mile-an-hour speed limit. He had to be doing 50, 60. Of course, there wasn't hardly anybody out that time in the morning on the streets.
Yeah.
But they knew where I sat with radar also. And this truck comes whipping in, and Marty Paddock and my brother Paul. And they said, Brian, he said, you wouldn't believe, he said, we just saw a monster out on Abair Road. We don't know what it is. And I says, come on, guys. I said, you that bored? I said, you doing a little bit of this?
Yeah.
I couldn't smell any alcohol. But anyway, he says, no. They went on and on. My dad was a sergeant. He had just got done about half an hour or so before that incident with them.
Yeah.
And I can't leave the village unless I'm covering an accident out there for the sheriffs or the troopers, or I'm in pursuit.
Sure.
So I can't leave the village. I called my dad. I said, what do I do? He told me, he says, you call the troopers and you call the sheriff and send them out there, because where my parents lived at the time, only 10 minutes from the spot.
Yeah.
He said, tell them I'll meet them out there. Well, when they get out there, you'd have to know the lay of the land. Anybody who's been on Abair Road knows what this looks like. But there was 2 sheriffs. There were 2 New York State troopers, my father, Marty Paddock, Bart Kenny, and my brother Paul. And now this is all told to me later the next day.
Right.
Of course, I had to get up and talk to my dad and my brother. But the lay of the land on one side of the road is it's flat with woods here.
Yeah.
It goes up on a hill like this, levels off, then drops down into a big valley, and it goes over to the fence line.
Okay.
And it's a big meadow, probably, I don't want to say 40 acres, 50-acre meadow.
Yeah.
And they all saw the same exact thing, but not at the same time, because one's positioned here, so on and so forth.
Oh, right.
You know what I'm saying?
Yes.
And as I remember my dad telling me, and God bless his soul, is Glenn LaRose. He was there. He was one of the sheriffs there that night. And he said, this thing stepped over the fence. Well, the fence was almost 4.5 foot tall, stepped over a fence just like you or I walking off a curb.
Right.
When it was all said and done, it was disappeared. Well, anyway, I got to talk to my dad and my brother the next day. And like I said, it's something that don't belong here. It's not from here. And I don't know why everybody, even to this day, tried to tell you saw a bear.
Right.
We're brought up in the country where I've been involved in killing an 800-pound black bear up in Sacandaga. I know what bears look like.
Right.
But anyway, as things went on, I went home, went to bed, so on and so forth that morning. And when I got up, the troopers come on duty at 3 o'clock, or excuse me, 11 to 7 shift. Mm-hmm. And it was my night off. It was a Tuesday night.
Okay. So
that would have been the 25th.
Mm-hmm.
The other was the day before, the 24th.
Right.
And I'm starting to remember stuff. They had one trooper, we call him Mr. Fox in the book. I've used his first name, which I can do now, and his name was Jim.
Yeah.
He said, hey, Brian. He said, what are you doing tonight? I says, nothing. I said, I'm used to being up working nights, so,
Right.
Well, let's go to Abair Road and see if we can see what the hell's going on out there. I said, yeah, no problem. So I took my own car. I wasn't on duty. He was.
Right.
And as you come in from Abair Road, from the east, you got a straight stretch. It's sort of like a letter S. It's on a hill, sort of like on the letter S down into a gully, and then it comes up flat. And you got big, huge meadows on both sides. And at the top of that hill is where the field down here comes to the road.
Yeah.
And then this field up here where the trooper was sitting, maybe 50, 60 feet off the road, that's all he was. Mm-hmm. It comes in like this, and it's roughly 40 feet wide. It's like it gets narrower at the road. So we get up there and we found a CB channel, and we could talk on that with a bunch of what they call skip and all that noise making stuff.
Yeah, yeah.
And he was, like I said, he was in a mowed field. The grass was probably 8-10 inches tall. It was green.
Right.
It had been mowed by the farmers. The field I was in hadn't been touched.
Okay.
And I had a 71 Monte Carlo at the time, and the grass was at the top of the fender.
The 71 Monte Carlo was the police car?
No. I wasn't out there as a police officer.
Oh, okay.
I had my own car.
Right.
And the grass was up to the fenders. And the first thing I did when I pulled in was go get the spotlight out, look around, blah, blah, blah.
Yeah.
Got in the car and took my dome light out so I could leave my door open, so I could be outside the car, no light. And there was no moon that night.
Okay.
It was dead silent. And here we are out in the country, and there's not a cricket, a katydid, a killdeer, nothing. It's all farmland. And you go out farmland at that time of night, this is after midnight.
Yeah.
You hear all kinds of things.
That's right. Yeah.
And it was just dead, just like me locking you in a cooler and slamming the door.
Yeah.
You don't hear nothing. And as we got there, within a few minutes, between the two of us, the state trooper and myself, we could hear what sounded like big limbs being snapped. And maybe dead limbs coming off pine trees. If you snap them, we could hear that every once in a while. And then Jim says, you realize that noise is getting closer? I said, I know that. So I get back outside out of my car. I do the spotlight thing again. And as time went on, maybe a half an hour or so, that noise just stopped. The next thing I hear is the trooper. Brian, what the blank is it? I'm getting the blank out of here.
Really?
And he tore ass out of that meadow because we're roughly, I want to say, 1,500 yards or so apart. He's up on the hill, out in the field. I can't see him, and he can't see me.
Right.
Well, I saw him when he, when he come out of the field. I saw him come down, and man, he blew down Abair Road and headed towards Whitehall. And I said, he's yanking my chain. He's just full of bullshit.
Right. So
I sat there a little longer, and then I started hearing this weird whooshing noise. And the only way, and I've described this 100 times.
Sure.
Coming from a large family, we had a small marsh across the road, and we used to go down there and get into the cattails and snap them off and take that little fuzzy thing on top and smoke them like a cigar. We were just kids. My father told us they used to do the same thing. So that was a running gag, but that swooshing noise is, I know what that is. That's cattail sound. And right down the middle of that field, it's only probably a couple, 3 feet wide. but there's cattails running down through there because that's from the spring runoff. And there's the cow slips and everything, blah blah blah, the flowers.
Right.
And then it stops. So now I'm getting a little bit antsy, so on and so forth. I know there's something there, so I get out of my car again, and now I'm staying out. I'm doing this with the spotlight every once in a while.
Yeah.
And as soon as I'd put the spotlight down, I'd hear this whooshing noise again. Well, I'm going to find out what that whooshing noise was. And the way I described it was a heavy person wearing corduroy pants.
Right. Okay.
That sound, almost identical.
Got it.
But I'd hear it start and stop. I said, what the hell is, what's making that noise? And now my mind is starting to work.
Yeah.
And I didn't realize until, in fact, we did a documentary out there where my car was parked and where I was standing. I was actually shooting over its head.
Oh. Because
where I am, that gully goes like this, then it comes up and it goes to the edge of the woods below where the trooper was. I started to go to the side of my car door because I knew there was something I wanted to, if I had to get a quick getaway.
Right.
I had my door open. I was ready to go. Something said, turn your light on now, and right off the right front of my car.
Yeah.
There's this creature standing there, 7.5, 8 foot tall, covered in long hair. And this is instantaneous in the sense that as soon as I hit it in the face, the body, but mainly in the face area when I hit the light, its eyes were the size of mayonnaise jar covers. They didn't glow like a deer's eyes, but you could tell they were red.
Yeah.
And this thing put its hands up, not paws or claws, and they were like human hands.
Yeah.
But covered with hair and dark skin.
Yeah.
And it put its head back like this and let out such a deep, deep, guttural roar, grunt combination, elephant-lion combination. But it would take 3 to 4 men's lungs capacity to do what that thing did. It made every hair in my head stand up. I mean, you could hear that. The vocalization alone. We've heard them prior or since then. It could be a mile away. You'll hear them.
Right.
And that's when it just dropped its hands and turned to its left.
Yeah.
But all the time, the facial thing, I saw it for a second. It had a nose similar to ours, but squashed down. Not like a gorilla, but close to it, but more like ours. Regular teeth, just like ours. No fangs. I remember big black lips. The hair was like this, not all over its face, but down long hair, like if you and I let our hair grow.
Right.
And all I got in my head, all I could hear in my head was, I'm not going to hurt you, not going to hurt you. That was over and over and over. But you got to realize, I'm looking at something that don't exist.
Right.
Now, this is back in the 70s. We were in this, like Star Trek movies, monsters from outer space.
Sure, yeah.
I'm looking at something, I don't have any idea what it is.
Right.
I know what they call it. I know it's not a bear. It's definitely not a man in a monkey suit, because when it turned and started moving, I could see the muscle structure in its back.
Right.
Its legs, the whole 9 yards. It was, the hair on the back of it was rolled in this way, but the hair on its arms was like an orangutan.
Oh, wow.
Hung down.
Yeah.
This one looked like it was not malnutrition. I took it as a male, because I don't remember any breasts, because everybody asked, did you see any boobs? No, I wasn't looking. Believe you me, I wasn't looking for boobs.
Right, yeah, no.
And it took strides that were 6.5, 7 feet. And you got to realize, here I am.
Yeah.
The field's like this, where the trooper was up here, is like this. And there's a log road way down in that corner. It's probably 900 to 1,000 feet.
Yeah.
And this thing took strides, and it only probably took it 2.5, 3.5 minutes to get to that corner. And when it got to that corner, it turned around and did 3 vocalizations, but they're like loud grunts. And I took it as, leave us the hell alone. We want to be left alone.
Yeah.
And it continued to go in the woods.
Wow.
So anyway, like I said, the trooper's gone. I'm there by myself. And in the instant, we made a little bit of eye contact before it brought its hands up. You got emotions you don't even know you have yet.
Yeah.
When I say, I've heard it before, what do you call it? You have that split second where you're going back into your childhood, the whole nine yards.
Oh.
I mean, there were so many thoughts in my head. I went through years. I think I was 24 at the time. All those years were split second. Everything that ever happened was, and it's like hot honey being poured over you.
Yeah.
Goosebumps, fear. And I'm standing there. I got my hammer pulled back on my 357. I'm shaking so bad. I'm like this, you know.
Yeah.
But I think now that's coming out on a lot of these shows, telepathy.
Yes.
I truly believe that's exactly what happened, because I can hear it, and it wasn't talking English to me, but I'm hearing English in my head.
Yeah.
And if it, put it this way, if it wanted me, I think it would have had me.
Yeah,
because a lot of people say, "Why didn't you shoot with it?" I said, "I'm not a police academy police officer. I was more or less trained on the job by the state police and former police officers in Whitehall. You know, we on the job training, I guess you'd call it.
Right.
And you don't just pull up and shoot something because you don't know what it is.
That's right.
You know, and
Yeah.
I now, John, be honest with you, I believe that if you shot one, there'd be repercussions.
Yes.
It's like, you know, a lot of people, you know, if they hear and watch this, that you can go back, talk to all your fancy scientists and veterinarians. It's like a bear, a coyote, a wolf. If you kill the main source of that breed,
The leader, yeah.
they will hunt you down. Especially a wolf or a coyote. They will hunt you down. Ask hunters the experiences they've had from killing. But anyway, I sat there for at least another 45 minutes and just collecting my thoughts. And of course, I'm in the car and I've got the door locked.
Yeah.
The car's not running. So I head back to the village, and I said, I know where he's going. So I get down to the Silver Diner. There used to be a place called the Silver Diner in Whitehall. It was a well-known diner restaurant. It was open 24 hours a day. The truckers would be there and all kinds of people coming in from the bars.
Yeah.
Well, the cops sat out in the back in a separate little area there. We had our coffee and compared notes. And I walked in, and Pauline Wilbur was walking at night. She was a waitress. And I walked in the front door instead of the back door. She says, "What the hell's up with Jim tonight?" I said, "Why?" "He's shaking like a leaf out there. He won't talk to anybody." I said, "It's just something that just happened a while ago." I said, I'll take care of it. So I go out, I look at him. He's sitting right there, and I'm standing there. "Jim, what the hell happened? What'd you see?" Didn't see anything. Like this.
Yeah.
Coffee all over the table.
Oh, wow.
I said, "You didn't see anything? Why'd you leave?
Yeah.
Why'd you leave me out there by myself?" And a lot of people have said, "A state trooper left you out there." What?
Yeah.
He's a human.
Yeah.
He probably got scared.
Yeah. His
Why
life flashed in front of his eyes too,
There
I'm
you go.
sure.
When
Yeah.
you say your life flashed
Yeah.
in front of your
Yeah.
eyes. And I didn't see anything. That's all he said. That's all he ever said to me.
Yeah.
It's the last verbal conversation I had with that man, even though he's still a trooper and I'm a cop.
Right.
So I find out this is gonna bust your chops.
Yeah.
I find out about 5 years later, we had our own dispatch, fire police dispatch right in the village of Whitehall. Fred Palmer was his name. He was one of our dispatchers. And I see him one day, this is long after he retired. He said, "Hey, Brian, remember that Bigfoot incident?" I said, "How the hell can I forget it?"
Right.
He says, "You know, Jim come in here the next night on duty and told me what he saw."
Oh.
I said, "Really?" He never said a word to me, my
Right.
father, his partners, as far as troopers go.
Yeah.
I said, "Well, why in hell didn't he ever say anything to me?" And I haven't seen the man since then. Last I heard, he was taking fingerprints for the FBI up in New Hampshire and Massachusetts. He moved up that way.
Yeah.
So I'm going to touch base with this, and I'm going to go back.
Sure.
Donnie Peterson, who is still alive,
Yeah.
he was a trooper, and he was a senior officer the next night after my incident.
Okay.
He got to work early. Now I'm working also. And the thing of it is, I was at the Big Apple Diner where my book is sold.
Yep.
And his wife, Joni's going, he was staying right next to me by the cash register. And Joni gave him an elbow. He gives him another. I said, "Tell Brian what you told me last night."
Right.
"Tell Brian what you told me last night."
Yeah.
He goes, "All right." So I says, "What's up, Don?" He says, "Let's go sit down for a minute." So we went over, sat down. He says, the next night, he said, after your encounter, he says, "I was senior officer that night. Normally they rode together."
Yeah.
If there were 3 troopers, they'd have 2 cars. Two troopers, 1 car. You got a partner, a buddy, right? And he said, I got there early, and Jim come walking in just about the normal time. He said, I looked at him, he said, get your ass in gear. He says, I'm in a hurry tonight. He said, why? He said, we're going out in Abair Road. And he said, Jim goes, no. I'm not going anywhere near Abair Road.
Right.
And he said, I looked at him, he said, what the hell's your problem? He said, I'm not going near Abair Road. He said, I'm the senior officer. You ride with me. We're going out to Abair Road. He said, no, I'm not.
Yeah.
He says, we got 2 cars. I'll be in the other one. You need me, you call me.
Mm.
And he says, that's as far as it went with Jim.
Wow.
I said, and he admitted it to you. Yeah, he said the same exact thing I did. But why in hell didn't he admit it to me?
Yeah.
And that's always bugged me. It really, truly has. It's like a stuck right there,
Sure.
But, each to their own. Like I said, maybe, did I have fear? Hell yeah, I had fear. I was scared to death.
Yeah.
But not crazy enough to just shoot and blast something I don't even know what it is. And I did not, excuse the cough again.
Yeah, you're good.
I went out there not as a total skeptic because I had talked to my brothers and Glenn Rose, the sheriff, and a couple other people that were out there the next day, and there was no reason for any of them to lie. They all saw something.
Yes.
And this stems over that whole area where I live. In fact, they're still around. This is an odd thing to say. People are going to say I'm nuts anyway. They did in the beginning when I finally come out and admitted what I saw. But if we go on an investigation, I get a feeling that they've been close by, and I want to say 7 out of 10 times we'll find a castable track.
Oh, really?
It's just a feeling I get. And they asked me about the smell. No, I didn't smell anything. It was dead calm that night. There was no.
Right.
Did I smell? No, I did not smell anything. And I said one of the best interviews I've ever had done, like you're doing right now, was from an 11-year-old girl with her father out of Massachusetts. She asked the most pertinent questions.
Really?
For an 11-year-old girl.
That's
it was
great.
Unreal.
Yeah.
And I told her, I says, congratulations. You actually asked questions that I can answer that anybody else can't answer.
Yeah, that's
and
great.
it was quite the to-do. But anyway, after that incident, I ended up throwing, I don't remember if it was Channel 6 or Channel 10 people. I worked 11 to 7. I'd try to go home, get in bed, bang, bang, bang on the door, trying to get me to get out of bed. Then after a while, Dan Gordon, it was 10 years after my incident, and God bless Dan, he was part of our group.
Sure.
And he and his partner had not an encounter, but a visual out the town shed going to just barely north of Whitehall. It's the town, the county shed, highway department.
Yeah.
And he said he thought it was a bear, and he got out of the car when it turned, went back down the bank, and it goes in all these ledges and stuff. And he said, I know what I saw, Brian. Because I saw him and talked to him, and he says, I thought you were crazy all these years. I said, well, are you crazy? And he had a partner, they called him Fudd.
Yeah.
He was like Barney Fife.
Yeah.
He didn't know what to do or what to say and everything else. But it was, I want to say a month or two after that, we got a report, and Bill Brain, I just came from his wake, we had a report down there. We found 3 casts. We found trees roughly diameter of a baseball, live trees, about 6.5 feet up, snapped over. And it was headed off in the same direction where Dan Gordon had his visual.
Wow.
But prior to that, and after the fact of my encounter on Abair Road, people from 10, 20 years prior to that finally come forward. And these people were in their 70s and 80s.
Right.
And even after that, we had 9, 10, 11 reports between that spot and my house. Because I'm just a stone's throw. I can be there in about 4 minutes from my house.
Yeah.
I mean, driving hell-bent for leather, but I can be there.
Yeah.
But to go out there now, you got 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6 houses that weren't even there. You were actually out in the country, all farmland.
Right.
And behind it is East Bay. And anybody that knows East Bay or has been there, you know yourself. It's just like being in the Amazon. Dead silence and nothing but marsh, swamp, snakes.
Oh, really?
Oh, yeah.
Wow.
Yep.
That's interesting. So, the little girl, kids are so curious, right?
Yeah.
So you would think she would say, well, what did it smell like? And ask those types of questions, which is super cool. I love that. Was there anything particular that stood out that she asked you that?
Was it more human-like or animal-like?
Oh.
Nobody ever asked me that question.
Wow.
And she did.
And the answer?
I said, both.
Yeah.
I said, it looks human-like outside of the hair. But I said, I know a guy that when I used to go to school, he was in 9th grade. The man had a beard like this, 9th grade.
Wow.
And the superintendent said, he would shave that off, and in 3 days, he had another great big full beard.
Wow.
He had that disease for the hearing
Sure.
growing up. Kid you not, his hair, oh my God. But I said, that was outside of the hair, very human-like. I said, there were no paws.
Right.
There were feet, there were hands, there were teeth like ours.
Right.
But a lot of these TV shows, Finding Bigfoot.
Yeah.
What a joke. What a joke. The very first documentary I did was with Doug Hychek, who worked with Jane Goodall.
Okay.
With the apes and all that stuff. And I can't think of her name off the top of my head. She's from out in the state of Washington. They come up and did a documentary. And I was so totally disgusted. Irate about the things. It was like watching a cartoon being made.
Really?
I had it set up to where they could actually go on private property across the river from where this thing crossed.
Sure.
They could set up their buggy the whole night. They had a great big huge driving mobile home that was bought and paid for by Animal Planet, I guess it was. That's who they were working for.
Yeah.
I didn't want no part of that. They went out to Bartholomew's parents' house, got buried that thing right up to the hubs.
Really? Wow.
But I'm watching this guy in the movie. He's talking about, well, I'm in the swamp, said all kinds of racket down here. You know what the swamp was? There was a roadway between this field and this field.
Yeah.
A little bit of backed up cattails here and there, maybe 20 feet wide. He's out in the boonies in the swamp. I said, then they're putting out cat food in that neck of the woods.
Oh, geez.
I said, how are you going to get with cat food? Raccoons, coyotes, stray cats.
Yeah.
Hey, look, what is that? What is that? You can tell by looking at it. It's a raccoon.
Yeah.
You know, it's just, and then the next thing you know, Autumn Williams, real pretty blonde girl. She was in it. Next thing you know, we're driving their buggy out through the log roads out in the back, and here she goes off on a dead road with all those cameras. It's like this.
Yeah.
And you're watching it going up and down like this. I looked at Doug. I said, what's she running for? Shh, shh. He said, this is just part of the movie.
Oh.
And I said, right then and there. I didn't really answer any more questions the next trip into the camper because they want me to go back out. I'm going home.
Yeah, yeah.
And even Matt Moneymaker, who was the head honcho with all this.
Sure.
I don't know if you know that name or not.
No.
Matt Moneymaker.
Oh, wow.
Lawyer.
Okay.
But he was even disgusted with the film. Documentary. I said, I'll never do another one. But then Dr. Bendenagle out of Canada.
Okay.
He did one for, was it not Animal Planet, the other one. But
History?
It was on the History Channel.
Yeah.
But he did a really, really, and this guy was into Bigfoot. He was a paleontologist, well educated. He just passed away. He was part of our group also. He passed away 3-4 years ago. He did a really, really good documentary that was more authentic. There was nothing added. What you say is in there.
That's right. Yeah.
And then Seth Breedlove did halfway decent one. What's that? He just aired that 6, 7, 8 years ago, maybe 9 years ago, and they held it at the Armory there in Whitehall, and had a good turnout.
Nice.
But I'll put it to you like this, in the sense that the people from Whitehall, you're crazy. Adam Goslins, they're all crazy. I come from a large family. We're poor all our lives.
Sure.
And they're all crazy anyway. They live out in the sticks and blah, 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 blah. And more or less took that to heart. And then after this, we're definitely nuts. And next thing you know, these people found a way to make money. So they started the Bigfoot Festival a few years down the road.
Yeah.
And they're whittling little Bigfoots, and they're doing this and doing that, and banners and all that stuff.
Yeah.
And I went down to they had one of those Indian powwows at the park where we hold the Bigfoot Festival.
Yeah.
And here's one of the main rednecks that I remember. I won't mention his name, but he's whittled. He's a damn good whittler, don't get me wrong.
Yeah.
Damn good artist. He's got paintings he's made of Bigfoot and whittling little statues from that height to that height. He's made some really big dandy ones too. And there was people around the table, and I walked up, and I looked, and I says to him, I'll call him by name, how you doing? Oh, not too bad. I said, what are you doing selling this stuff?
Yeah.
What do you mean selling this stuff? I said, stuff affiliated with Bigfoot.
Yeah.
You're one of the biggest rednecks there ever was, telling me I'm crazy, my family's crazy. I said, but did you ever say the troopers or sheriffs that were there were crazy? No, just my family.
But he's jumping on the bandwagon.
You're finding a way to make money on it. And I said, now it's all right, right?
Right.
Oh, don't you ever come back to this table when I'm doing this again? I said, I'll come back anytime I want.
Yeah.
I said, the truth is the truth.
Yeah.
But, and there's been just so much stuff since then.
Sure.
And this I saved more or less to the end, because the man we just buried today, he never wanted to hear this. Even though he believed it, he didn't want to hear it. Roughly 14, 15 days prior to the whole 9 yards.
Okay.
Anybody at work nights, we had calls galore. UFOs.
Oh, really?
UFO. Anybody at work nights and went out and spent 10 minutes looking at the sky, you were seeing things that you just could not explain. Jets don't just come to a screeching halt and sit there and pulsate in the air.
Yeah.
These just crazy stuff.
Yeah.
This went on for roughly 6 days. And then it was dead quiet for a week, and then these things appear.
Yeah.
Not once, but twice.
Yeah.
And I said, Jesus, I always, ever since my eye coincide one with the other.
Sure.
Is we've experienced this. How can you be following Bigfoot tracks that are going across the field, and they'll tell you on some of these TV pairs, oh, the wind was blowing up that end of the field that just filled the tracks in. That's why there's no, because they're either being beamed up or beamed down.
Yeah, something.
That to me is they don't belong.
Where do they go?
They're not from here. But now you got to go way back a few hundred years. These things have been reported, especially in the Champlain Valley.
Yeah.
And Lake George region, half the casts we got in our possession come out of the east shore of Lake George.
Really?
Up in Buck Mountain area. And, oh, yeah. We just got 2 fresh casts. This is one for the record in the sense that I don't like to go to the festival without something new.
Sure.
And we got a call from a gentleman. He's from Massachusetts, Connecticut. And he's got a camp in a straight line 7 miles from my home. And it's on an old country road.
Yep.
And you have to drive off the road. You go up a hill, across the flats, down into a dip where there's a swamp on both sides of the road with a culvert going right up to the other side, down, same thing, swamp. Then you find this camp. Of course, he's got an outhouse. And he called us the next day after he had something going on there. He said, I don't know what it was. He said, I heard one such a hell of a screech and blah, blah, blah. And he said, I just want you guys to go back in there and investigate for me. He said, I don't know what it was, he said, but I did get that. He was in the restroom. He said, normally I have a shotgun in the restroom with me.
Right.
In his outhouse, just in case, because there are bears there.
Yeah, sure.
And he said, I packed up and just got out of there. And he said, then I called you. So me and my wife went over the next day, and we did an investigation. And the odd thing of it was, the first thing I found, roughly 30 feet in front of his outhouse, going down the bank, were bear tracks. And it was a good-sized bear. And it come to a screeching halt when it come to the bottom. Now we're on a side bank, and it's 99% hemlock trees.
Okay.
So, needles, it's like walking on a waterbed, as far as the needles go.
Yeah.
And this bear, when it got to the bottom, took off like a bat out of hell to the left on a dead run. We lost his tracks, went across the road and got into the other marshy area. So we come back and we're looking along the edge of where the water runs down through, which is it's just swampy muck, cattails and whatnot, down trees. We just happened to find my wife on one side of a tree, and on the opposite side of that same tree, I said, I found a cast. Well, she found hers first. So I get back in there, and I don't get anywhere around it, which we don't do, and I put my hand in there, and I'm feeling around. You can do this yourself, you can get in there, you can tell if it's a deer track, so on and so forth, but you could feel the toes, you could feel the arch, the metatarsal break, and you could feel the heel. That's the better one. But the biggest one is the one I found. It's almost as big as that one I got out of West Mountain. That one's 18 and a half inches long.
Wow.
And 11 3/4 wide.
Yeah.
And this guy where I got it was a true non-believer until he found that. But like I said, this is just one of those things. But this last year, I actually got to bring 2 new casts.
That's great. Yeah.
Done at the same site.
Yeah.
And there's 2 different ones. I would say an adolescent and an adult.
Oh.
And they headed off in the same direction as the bear did.
Yeah.
So who was chasing who?
That's right.
That's just the way I'm looking at who's saying maybe nobody's chasing anybody, but the point being, but that guy, that's what he heard, and we spent, I don't know, probably 4 or 5 hours investigating that place there, looking for more tracks. It goes back into a swampy area where that grass is about that tall and mucky mire, and didn't even want to get into that. We just did the perimeter and couldn't find anything else. It's a lot of our investigations. You know, you'll find bits and pieces, maybe toe prints or something. And one other thing I want to tell you with Dr. Bendenego. Yeah. Bill has the original. It's my cast, but I'll probably never get it back. She's always in the ground now. But I actually had a cast. We got up in Buck Mountain area, and you got these places where it runs down off the mountain, you know, gets into lowlands and goes down. Finally ends up in Lake George. But it's late spring when that runoff is done. It turns to black muck. Mire and all that stuff, you know. And I'm walking the creek bed, which I go off by myself. If there's a group of people, I go off by myself. Yeah. You know, I'm not going to look at what you're looking at. You look over there, I'll look over here. That's right. Thing. Yeah. And I gave Bill a holler, and he was 75% blind at that time. And my wife, my wife, she was more or less his seeing eye dog. I said, check this out. And of course, he's got to get down there. All he could see was about what you could see through a straw with one eye. Oh, really? And he goes, what are you looking at? I says, look at that right there. Well, you could see the heel. But the heel was here. Yeah. Not that big. And there was a stick, a root, tree root. Yeah. And this thing, the heel had gone down in here, but when it stepped down where the brook area came down, it rolled like this, then came back. Well, this thing's foot went right into a slot, roughly that wide, about that tall. Right. And the mud was somewhat pliable. It wasn't juicy mud. So I said, I'm going to try something. We packed that damn thing right up in there, put the stuff up there, and I packed it in with my hands. Then we did the rest of the cast. And of course, we let it dry for 8-10 hours. When we pulled the cast out, which is a chore in itself, the heel part broke off, but I got the whole front of the foot. Yep. And Dr. Bendenego says that, Brian, he said, I think you're the only one on the face of this planet that's actually got the foot with the toenails. Oh, really? Because when it went in, it did this. That's embedded. You could see the lines in the toenails, the whole 9 yards. Wow. Those nails were quite bigger than that. That's great. And Bill's got the cast. I don't know if I'll ever get it back, but But that's just a few things I can tell you. If you have a few questions, I'll answer them for you. Yeah, that's great. I mean, that's a lot. Wow, you got my head spinning. There's so much there, and I appreciate you sharing because I could tell you were kind of reliving that a little bit as you were speaking. Not a day goes by I don't think about it. I bet. I'm surprised. One of the things that I heard was that you're into hunting and you're back out in the woods doing some research. I go packing all the time now, though. Yeah, I bet. Would I shoot one? Not unless I felt threatened. Just like a bear, I wouldn't shoot a bear. I won't shoot anything unless I feel threatened. Of course, right. But I'm a deer hunter. You got to protect your life. So how do you? So with just to focus on the hunting piece. So when you're out hunting, are you thinking about Bigfoot? Are you researching while you're hunting? Yep. I'm sure. It all comes with the whole 9 yards. You know, maybe I'll get lucky enough out of this tree stand, I'll see something. And I haven't, but we've heard things at night. But like I told you, it was 2-3 years ago. I was sitting on the deck. My wife works 3 in the afternoon till 5 after 11 at night at the Rutland Hospital, and I stayed out on the deck all that night, and I told my wife, I says, they're here. I said, I could feel them the other night. And then I heard what sounded like a bear hoot, but it wasn't a bear hoot. Right. Because then there was a growl involved with it, and that wasn't a bear. And I'm talking, if I'm sitting on my deck right here, you go across the road, which are roughly 300 feet, and then it goes up the mountain and levels off and goes down. And I heard such a commotion. I go, what the hell? So I went in, grabbed my gun, jumped in my truck, and just come out of my driveway, drove up the hill a 1/16 of a mile, did a U-turn. I'm sitting there, and deer were coming up, pouring off that mountain. Oh, really? Like a rainstorm. Wow. And they weren't the least bit interested in me being there. They just stopped and looked behind them themselves. I said either wolves, mountain lion, because we do have mountain lions, or I said Bigfoot. And I just had that funny feeling. Yeah, I'm thinking Bigfoot again.
Yeah.
We went up
Yeah.
in there. We found what looked like tracks, but when I testified, we found tracks now.
Right. Right.
Because Mrs. Solomon, who lived there at the time, was an elderly lady, very, very beautiful woman for her age, in her 80s, and she just sold a place there 3 years ago. Something had been getting into her blueberries. We did find bear tracks, but we went up on top, and we found what looked like not bear tracks. There's a big difference. I mean, a bear's claws are always out.
Yeah.
Unlike a cat that can,
Sure. Yeah.
And what we found, we thought were tracks, but it's heavy forest debris and berry bushes.
Sure.
But you can tell by looking through there, it's something large.
Yeah, sure. So do you feel you have some sort of connection?
Yes.
Yeah, that's what it sounds like to me.
Yes, I do. That to me, because my wife, Susan Gosselin is her name. She was Susan Wilson. She's a psychic person.
Okay.
She is in so many books. Her name mentioned, and she does readings for people and stuff, and they're amazed at what she can tell them that it's impossible for her to know. Complete strangers knowing more about you than you yourself. But she said, you've got the gift. Just like her, she said,
really?
Well, her daughter is psychic, her mother was psychic, her grandmother was psychic, and she's psychic.
Wow.
All she needs from you, meeting you first time is your keys.
Yeah.
Or your wallet, whatever.
Yeah.
And she'll sit there and she'll tell you things you said, how the hell she know that?
Right.
And she's really good. Like I said, she's in several books out there.
Wow, that's super cool. Wow. So that's awesome that she's able to help confirm that you have some sort of connection.
Well, it's like she thought she was crazy when she was a kid. Why this stuff was happening? Like a lot of people can talk to dead people.
Yeah.
She can associate with them. Does she talk to them?
Yeah.
No, she'll tell you what that person's saying to you. To go back and talk about loved ones and stuff like that. But she is good. And the odd thing, this is sort of comical. The odd thing with it is I love my wife. Wished I'd have married her the first time around. But anyway, we met at our Bigfoot group.
Oh, great.
And I said to Bill, I said, who's that? She's just like my daughter. You stay away from her.
Oh, boy.
Okay, who the hell do you think you are? Right?
Yeah,
I just want to know who it was. Well, I had been talking in the group about my dad who had passed, and he was visiting me quite regularly there for, Christ, 4 or 5 years.
Yeah.
He smoked cherry blend pipe tobacco. And when you're sitting in a house, and I don't smoke in a house, and all of a sudden you get this woof.
You can smell that.
Of cherry tobacco. I said, hi, Dad, how you doing? And my wife goes, that's your father.
Yeah.
I said, I know it is. And I said, the night he died, I said, he died in the Rutland Hospital, and I was the only one there the night with my mom. Yeah, God bless him. He died a bad life. But anyway, he visited us all. My mom, the phone rang, and my mom said, your father's passed. I said, I know, he's already been here.
Oh.
My wife and at the time and myself were sitting on a couch. It was just like somebody sitting in that where you can't see anybody.
Yeah.
And my brother Russell, we lived in a duplex, come right over almost instantaneously.
Wow.
Said, Dad was at my house. My sister Jill called. My sister Becky called. They lived in Lake George and the other one in Fairhaven, Vermont.
Wow.
Dad was just here. I said, and I'm a true believer in the Lord Jesus Christ.
I got the chills. You got
so
me.
Do I.
Woo!
And I truly believe in life after death.
Sure.
You know, I could tell you things go on and on, things that have happened in my lifetime, things I've seen, but people would really think I'm crazy. But there's a reason I believe in the Lord Jesus Christ.
Yeah.
There's been at least 9 times I should be dead. And he has saved my ass for some reason. I keep asking, what am I here for?
Yeah.
What am I here for?
I'm with you on that. I've had some experiences myself throughout my life that really there's no answer for, and I go, there's only one reason that happened, and it's not
That's right.
coincidence.
That's right. I agree 100,000%.
Yeah. So from a festival perspective, we could touch on that real quick. So it seems it's made based off of your story, right?
Yes,
so this is you that they've created this festival.
Outside of supposedly the birthplace of the U.S. Navy, which someplace in Long Island claims the same thing, but the Bigfoot put Whitehall on the map is what they say now.
Yeah, I agree. Well, I did go this year, and I met some people there from Alaska. There was
Oh, yeah, you
people
would-
from around far.
And you wouldn't believe, there's hardly anybody from Whitehall there.
Yeah,
Ever.
really?
Ever.
Wow.
Except for the calling contest.
Yeah.
That's cute in itself.
That
anyway.
is super cool. I watched the video that ESPN did. And,
That was really short.
very
That
cool.
was.
And so the festival. So what part do you play in the festival? So you do help with the calling contest, right?
Well, I normally do. I didn't last year. Steve calls. Me and him used to do it every year, and he's a investigator. But I sit there and I talk to people. A lot of people, not that I'm blowing my own horn, will drive that distance to hopefully meet me, get a copy of my book,
Sure.
my autograph, and talk somewhat. And you can't when you got 30, 40, 50 people coming by. Coming by. You can't spend the time with them. I really, truly enjoy it. And there are people out there that have got some stories. We hand them out a self-addressed envelope. We'll write your story. Could we use a short? We never get anything back. Very, very rare.
Oh, wow.
And some of the stories that come in, like last year, this one out of New Hampshire in particular, I even called, he wouldn't answer his phone.
Wow.
He was, oh yeah, I guarantee you, we'll send this. They're probably in their 60s, farmland up in someplace in New Hampshire they were.
Right.
But state troopers, game wardens that have come forward since that.
Right.
I'll give you a good one here too, John. It's I got into scrapping for a while. My Uncle Bernie had died. And he lived in an old home out in over on Holcombville Road, where this guy just recently from Massachusetts or Connecticut, where he was from, but lived out there. And he had barns full of scrap. And my cousin Janie said, Brian, I want you to clean it out. I don't care what you do with it. Old car engines. And put it this way, I made almost $7,000 in a month just in scrap. That's when scrap was going through the roof.
Yeah.
And I've got a right of way through my sister-in-law's property and my brother's property. It's a roadway. And I had so much junk lined up both sides. My wife come home one day and she says, clean that damn mess up. I said, I'm doing it. I'm sorting it out by, variety.
Yeah.
But anyway.
I'm getting there, honey.
And it was about 11 o'clock in the morning. I heard a car coming up the driveway, and I said, "You're a state trooper." Jesus, don't tell me. I'm thinking to myself, don't tell me somebody said I stole something out of their yard or something.
Yeah.
He pulls in, he looks at me, I says, and here he is. He gets out of the car. He's sitting in the car like this.
Yeah.
And he has to come out like this and stand up. The guy was that tall.
Wow.
And I know he was Polish.
Yeah.
Because he had his hand over his name tag.
Yeah.
And I could see SKY. And I said, oh, I know he's Polish. He never told me his name.
Okay.
And he's just looking around. I said, you looking for something in particular? No. I said, well, can I help you? He said, nobody can help you. I says, what? He pointed at the sign on the side of my truck. That.
Oh.
The night before, him and his partner, there were two different patrol cars, got called out of the Granville barracks to go up to Putnam barracks to back up the troopers up there, a domestic violence thing or some kind involving weapons. So they called in for backup. Well, on the way home, this is a hot spot too, is just north of Whitehall, you got South Bay on 22 North. Okay. You got South Bay. And then you got a long sloping turn that goes up a hill headed towards Ticonderoga. He said, I was coming down through there. And he said, I had to shake my head. And he said, I come right on the binders. And of course, a trooper's car's headlights are twice as bright as yours and eyes. The high beams, twice as bright. He said, I said, oh my God. And he said he did a quick right-hand turn and flipped the alley lights on, or the bar lights on top. And he said, I got it right on the phone with my partner, or on the radio with his partner that was coming down behind him. He said, you slow down when you're coming down through. He said, you got to see what I'm seeing.
Yeah.
He said, this thing went across Route 22A, but I'm only guesstimating, that's got to be 40 feet wide.
Right.
From shoulder to shoulder, grass to grass.
Sure.
And he said 6 steps it was across that roadway. And he said it got out into the field, and that's they still do it. There was big, huge round bales, and they're roughly right to here, high.
Sure.
He said this thing was that far above it. Wow. On the other side. And it would duck down and look up. He said, next thing I know, I see it going towards, there's a south base here, there's a big inlet like this, and it's all cattails and marsh and blah, blah, blah.
Yeah. I
said, well, did your partner get to see it? He said, no, he didn't get here in time. But he says, I know what I saw. So it was the next day, not that day that he reported to me. The next day I went out and I asked Dale Lane owned the property. I said, all right, yeah, go ahead. He said, just watch out for the rattlesnakes. A lot of rattlesnakes up there.
Yeah.
I got down in there and looking down the bank, which roughly goes down 40 feet into a marshy area, and it goes up a bank on the other side and heads off. If you stay in a straight line, you head up on the West Fort Ann, Lake George.
Okay. Yeah.
Buck Pond, all
Yep,
that, up
I
in
know
that
where
neck of
all
the woods,
that's
you head off in that direction. You could tell it looked like a water buffalo, say, or a hippo went down that bank. I got down the bank to the bottom, and you could see big heel prints like where they slid. It slid, and there's trees that big around, live, that gray brush of some kind, I don't know what it's called, grows along most of your rivers up this way in your swampy areas.
Yeah.
Snapped off, trying to stop itself. So I walked all the right way around the other side, and you can see where it came up, and where it comes up, comes out into a meadow. Of course, up there it's all clay,
Right.
rock hard stuff. And you could see something go up. The grass is about that high, matted down,
Right.
but there's nothing there you can cast. I said, the man saw something. He said, you can't use my name. I said, well, I don't even know your name.
Yeah.
You know, because he was like that all the time. He said, I just wanted to let you know. Then I had a Vermont State Trooper call me one morning. It was 20 after 1 in the morning. My phone rings. And what do you think? Family members hurt. Something's happened.
Emergency. Yeah.
And it was a Vermont State Trooper. Fairhaven, Vermont's here. New York is right here, and this is where I live.
Yep.
And you go past my house a mile and a half out on the Abair Road, take a right, you're back into Vermont. Well, he was answering a call down on this end of Vermont. It's called West Haven.
Yeah.
And right by my house. Now, this is in the spring of the year when you're getting the thawing days and the freezing nights. And there was snowbanks, well, maybe that high, foot and a half beside the road. What he saw across the road. He said, come across the road, turn around, and we're back the same way it came. I said, what'd you see? I don't tell anybody what you saw. You tell me what you saw.
That's right.
He said, all I can tell you, he said, was a hell of a lot taller than me, and it was covered with hair. And if it was a bear, it was the most human-looking like bear I've ever seen in my life. So anyway, it comes daylight. Of course, I stayed up then. Started breaking daylight, and I said to my wife, I'm going to walk over by the William Miller Chapel. I said, see if I can see anything. Well, you could see what looked like somebody with a large shoe stepped in the snowbank, just went straight safe from here to the couch chair, back across the road and headed up the trail between my sister-in-law's property and the William Miller Chapel. Well, now you got bare spots that are there that are, there's no snow on them. It's just leaves and stuff like that.
Yeah.
I got up in there, and up on top, there's a nice pine grove, beautiful in there. Of course, no brush, no nothing. And believe it or not, I looked and going towards the neighbor's house, Jesus Christ, that looks like a track. There was a track roughly that long, that wide, in where it had stepped in like slushy snow.
Yeah.
And proceeded, and that froze. And then there was one about that big.
Really?
I said, what the hell? So my wife, oh yeah, she had to come up. I said, there you go, right there.
Yeah.
I had it on my phone, and I was still scrapping, overtaking some scrap out. Well, it fell in a mud puddle over to my boss's place of business, scrap and garbage and all that.
Oh, geez, yeah.
Lost the phone.
Lost the phone, yeah.
And I said, I'll be damned.
Yeah.
I said, the man saw what he saw. But then it's headed back up onto the same mountain.
That's right.
On the back side is Abair Road. And there's a place up there, it's roughly a mile long, it's swampy, heavy vines and pines. It's just crazy.
Yeah. So about how far up Abair Road? If you were to take a left onto Abair and go straight up.
If you were coming into Whitehall and you went out through the back way, you take a right on the Abair Road, is up there 300 yards where it is. Coming from my house, it's a little bit further.
Yeah. Interesting. So, but no fear hunting or getting out there, and but you don't feel like you have a fear because there was no threat, right?
No, because a lot of people, did you feel threatened? No, like I said, all I could hear in my head was, I'm not going to hurt you, not going to hurt you, not going to hurt you. And this is another thing I want to throw in too, is that sort of like after it got down that corner and did its last 3 guttural things, I got like a really, really heavy sense of total peace. And like everything just washed away. Yeah. It's like being hotter than hell and pouring cool water over you. It's weird, but that's the way I felt. Yeah. That's why I sat there for 45 minutes just collecting my thoughts as to what did you just see? These things aren't real. This isn't real. All I know is what I saw.
Yeah.
And nobody will ever tell me it was a bear, and nobody will ever, on the face of the earth, tell me they don't exist. There's been so many worldwide reports of these things. I mean, they go by like probably 15 different names in different countries, and in this country, I think there's 6, 7 different names.
Yeah.
But even the British going up to Ticonderoga and the Indian tribes around Lake Champlain area, they all reported these things way back when.
Yeah. Yeah. I'm
This is
starting to do some
all,
research
This
on
is
that.
all. Oh yeah, but you'll really get into it. You'll really get into it. And you tell me they're all making this stuff up too way back then?
Right.
Give me a break.
Yeah. Well, I don't question it. First and foremost, I'm truly a believer. But where they came from, where they live, how they survive, those are all open for discussion.
Right. Well, the thing of it is, since I had my encounter, I'm supposed to know it all.
Yeah. That's right.
I don't know. The one guy.
Tell us, will you, please?
Yeah, or do they go in the wintertime? I said.
Yeah.
I have no idea. Maybe,
what are they doing?
Well, they got the skunk.
Where's all the poop?
Well, that bodies, stuff like that.
Yeah.
I said, if they probably buried their dead.
Yeah.
Or if they're dead, they go back up there. I don't know. I don't know what to say.
Yeah. It's very, very interesting. Very interesting. So Whitehall seems to be a hot spot for sightings because I did some research.
For quite a while.
And I've just come across tons and tons of sightings. No real true eyewitness. Nothing as compelling as your experience, which is
which my brother Paul and my dad were still alive. But my brother Paul's gone. My dad's gone. Bart Kinney's still around, and I did a motorcycle ride with a bunch of guys, and I hadn't seen him. Good God, 30 years. Hey Brian, what the hell are you doing? I said, what the hell are you doing here? He said, I ride bikes now. He lives way up Randolph, Vermont. He come all the way down to Fray, and we did a ride for a guy, and he remembers that. What he saw, he said, nobody will ever tell me. I said, you haven't got to tell me nothing, man.
Yeah.
I said, I was there the next night and I had the encounter. He said, we saw it from a distance. And he said, I know what I saw.
Yeah.
He said, number one, he said, when it got down before it went across the fence, he said, I don't know any man that can move that fast for its size. And they have always said they're stealth-like. And we had a gentleman that contacted us a few years ago. You go up into Buck Mountain. I don't know if you ever heard of Camp Wakapotomy.
I have heard of that.
It's the Boy Scout place.
Yep, I did.
Well, this one gentleman, I think he's from Hudson Falls.
Is that up here?
You go off 149.
Yes,
by
that's
the
right.
Stovery there or whatever.
Yeah. I've hunted up there a few times. Yeah.
We've had state troopers that have been up in there with their wives and family being paralleled by something up on the next ridge. John Weitzel, who used to be a man in our group, and God bless him, he was the man that found certain ships in Lake George, did a lot of skin diving and stuff in Lake George.
Sure.
But there's just so many things you can take. It's like they do with UFOs now, the government.
Yeah.
They have 1,000 reports. They can just debunk, say, 400 of them.
Yeah.
Then they'll attire it to this or that, and now you're down. But there's 600 they can't disprove.
Right. That's right.
And, there are, don't get me wrong, there's so many people since 9/11 happened from the city that have moved this way.
Yes.
I can't tell you, John, how many calls I've had.
Yeah.
I had a Bigfoot on my property. Blah, blah, blah. You get up in there and it's just dead branches falling out of the trees. When you go in the woods, you see trees like this where they fall into it.
Yeah.
That's a Bigfoot hut. Every squeak, squawk at nighttime, I said, brought up in the country, you wouldn't believe how many noises and sounds a fox in itself can make. They'll sit there in the road, you swear to God, you're listening to a seal.
Yeah, yes.
And it's a fox.
Yeah.
And mountain lions, bobcats, they make 10, 15 different sounds. And there's all kinds of animals out there, so not every bump in the night is a Bigfoot.
Right.
Because these people come up thinking they're running around, well, where are they all?
Yeah.
They're not like herds of cattle and horses running around,
Go find them. Yeah, we want to see too.
Because I feel somewhat blessed that I experienced what I did, but after the initial sighting, we were made so much fun of and everything else. I regretted even opening my mouth.
Yeah.
But after my wife wrote the book, as my story, she wrote the book, and I read, she wouldn't change this, change that. God is my witness. I had so many phone calls in the first year that was printed. We went out to Johnstown Sportsman Show.
Okay.
We got asked to come out there. You wouldn't believe how many people come up there just to meet me. We went out with 600 books, sold every one before they were even closed.
Wow. That's great.
Is, oh, what everybody wants a second book now. My wife started it.
Yeah.
Because now
I was thinking about that.
I don't think you'll ever see her do it. But
Yeah.
it'd be 3 times thicker and bigger.
Yeah.
I mean, with investigations we've done, what we found, pictures, all kinds of stuff. But the people I've had phone calls from out of the country, Great Britain.
Yeah.
We got a phone call. Somebody that used to be from the United States, he was in the service and he retired, and that's where he lives now. And the thing of it is, the guy was from North Creek, New York.
Oh, really? Wow.
He said, I want to thank you very, very much. He said, I read this book, he said, 3 times. And I've had several calls like this where the people were from up in this neck of the woods in New York State that have read the book, and then they're older than I am now.
Yeah.
And come out and talk about their experiences when they were teenagers and or young adults, hunting in the woods in the Adirondacks and up in this neck of the woods.
Sure.
And I said, and you really didn't really say too much prior to mine. Otherwise, see that house over there with the bars on the windows? That's where you're going. You know what I'm saying?
Yeah. Yeah. Yeah.
And I've told my wife for, what's it been, last 6, 7, 8 years, the government releasing tapes and film and documents about UFOs.
Sure.
And I said, how long have you known me, honey? She said, 17 years.
Yeah.
I said, what did I tell you 17 years ago about all this stuff?
Yeah.
And I'll tell you right on camera. The government is preparing us for something. They are opening up more and more doors to, do I believe we have aliens in our possession?
Possibilities.
You bet your sweet keister I do.
I do too.
I do believe we got ships. I mean, our technology went from here to way over here.
Yeah.
In 15 years.
Yeah.
There's more than meets the eye, but I wish that if there are good aliens, they say there's a battle going on in outer space anyway. They say this on these different programs that there's a battle going on between good and evil out there now.
I've done a lot of reading and studying on Bob Lazar and all his experiences that he's had with the government and hiding different things and
even the one with the minutes.
I believe it, and now they're admitting that some of this stuff is true. Yeah. So it's very interesting.
Well, now they're trying to tear apart the deal with the Nimitz off the California coast, where they call it the Tic Tac.
Right. Yes.
They tried this the other day. The program I was watching. They're trying to rip that apart, thinking it's a fake now. I said, why would the government say it's real?
Yeah.
And what's his name? Belazar or whatever it is.
Bob Lazar. Yeah.
Lazar.
Oh, yeah. And I've listened to the pilots speak to that.
Oh yeah.
That witnessed it and was there when it was filmed, and they said that they've seen it before. They just happened this time to get it on camera. Interesting. Yeah.
This is when you got me on a roll now. Tom Leonard. I was taking care of him. I took care of him for 3 years. He's a retired Air Force colonel. He flew the big C-10s. Yep. Now the C-10s are twice the size.
Are those the big container?
Yeah.
Oh God.
The troops and all that kind of stuff.
Yeah.
Huge.
Every time I'm driving by Springfield, Massachusetts, somewhere down 90.
See those big ones?
Yeah. It looks like defying gravity. It looks like they're just going to fall out of the sky. They're so heavy.
But then they got the 6-engine ones now too. Then you could put one of the big ones you're just talking about in the back of that one.
Really?
Oh my God.
Wow.
We went to New Hampshire on vacation 2 years ago, and we saw one coming in for a land. I said, oh, how did they get something that massive
in the air?
Let alone coming back down and landing.
And loaded up with stuff.
Yeah. But he told me, Tom I worked for him. I'm 72 now.
Yeah.
I started work for him when I was 8 years old in the apple orchard.
Oh, really?
Well, he was a pilot. By the time I was 14, I was the head foreman in that orchard. I ground all the cider, picked 90% of the apples. Not 90%, it was more like 50%, but we hired Jamaicans and other people to come in and pick the apples and the crops. I took care of the shipping, the receiving, all that.
Yeah.
The man made a fortune there. But he used to go all over the world flying, and he flew out of Greenland a lot. And it was just before Christmas. The Vietnam War was going on.
Yeah.
Anyway, I worked for him till I was 18 years old, my senior year. Now I'm back to the guy that owns the orchard now. Been with him for 25 years, that same orchard. But they're headed to Greenland with care packages, Christmas presents, everything, going to Vietnam.
Okay.
3 planes. I held up 2 fingers. And he said, Brian, he said, any pilot that spends any time in the air can tell you things you won't believe. So
I believe
I
that.
said, so what's going on? He says, well, he said, once we got off the coast of Greenland, he said it was only a matter of a couple of minutes. He says, we got ships to our left, or ship to our left, and a ship to our right. They're not ours. They're not Air Force. He said, you didn't want to vary a few degrees one way or the other, because he said it was a natural force kept you in line.
Right. Wow.
He said, now these guys, the crew, most of them had 3-man crew. He said, they got pictures. They did drawings. He said the picture shows it like hieroglyphics on the sides of them and stuff, these ships that are.
Really?
He said, I forgot what place in Vietnam they were going to be landing. But he said we got maybe 5 miles from our landing site and gone just like a bullet.
Wow.
He said we were escorted all the way there. They were escorting us to make sure we got there safely.
Interesting.
He said, that's not the first, not the last. And he said, that's going to be the end of that one. He says.
Yeah, yeah.
And he was, the man still, he's exactly 20 years older than me. He turned 92 this year. He's at a home because he's got dementia and Alzheimer's now, but God bless him.
Yeah, yeah. It's interesting. I've heard a lot of stories, especially of Bigfoot too, out of Vietnam, in that those stories were brought back from the soldiers during the war, of things that they've seen.
That they weren't just fighting the Viet Cong.
That's right. Yeah, yeah. So very, very interesting. It makes me think about, I did some research and found out that every year we still discover, and when I say we, I mean the world discovers
species.
10,000 more species every year.
Yep.
There's estimated 20 million more species, 2 million more species that's undiscovered. So what else could be out there, that we just haven't found yet,
In the ocean itself. That's another world in itself.
Sure, yeah.
And with all these different things that have gone in and out of the ocean that they've seen, fishermen, people on aircraft carriers, all this, it's just, but all those people are crazy.
Yeah.
Come on, man, why don't you just tell the people what they don't want to hear? Let them prepare in their own way.
Yeah. And going back to what you were talking about with the government, now releasing some things and preparing us for something, I agree with that. There's technology has just come so far now, and there's a camera everywhere you go.
Oh yeah.
So you can't hide anything anymore.
Well,
so,
if you don't shut your cell phone off, they know where you are. They can go right through your cell phone.
That's right. Yeah, yeah. Was it Snowden, or who was the guy that they have hidden someplace in another country right now? He laid all that out and said, it doesn't matter if you turn your phone off. They still, your phone's always on. It's never really off. So very interesting. Wow. So tons of stories and experiences, and Whitehall is just a hot spot. So I'm so intrigued. I feel like I could get my boots on and get out there somewhere. And
you want to come up sometime?
Yeah, I'd love to.
I'll take you down to East Bay. There's so many stories from down there that unreal. I said I could sit here for hours.
Sure.
And talk to you about sightings and stuff, but this is a place you got to see to appreciate.
I'd love to.
It's just like being in the Amazon.
Yeah, yeah.
And it's miles and miles and miles of swamp. You got the Pontly River out of Vermont ends up at the Kivers Falls Dam, which is 3/4 of a mile behind my house.
Okay.
That's where East Bay starts.
Yeah.
From that point on, all the way in, and East Bay ends up in the Champlain Canal, just north of the locks in Whitehall.
Yeah.
That's where East Bay flows in. But everything to the right coming down East Bay, in other words, it'd be to the west. That's where there's so much activity, reports. It all ends up from where I told you the troopers, two troopers coming down. He saw it, and it was behind the bale of hay and so on and so forth.
Yeah.
It all ends up off in that direction.
Okay.
And we've had probably, over the last 30 years, probably 15, 20 reports on that same turn.
Wow.
And then where they cross the road and head to the right, now you're going up into Buck Mountain area, up into the mountain range.
Yeah.
And like I said, most of the cast we've got come out of the Buck Mountain range up in there.
Yeah.
And it's just crazy.
To find a good print to get a cast. I found a print, but I didn't have anything to make a cast with. Wow, it's just so much. I'm trying to kind of.
I know.
Trying to kind of take
I've thrown a lot
take it.
at you.
Yeah, you sure did. You got my wheels spinning. My head is spinning in a positive way, in a good way. This is really good conversation. Have you talked to anybody or gotten any reports from lumber companies, forestry department, paper mill type folks, anything like that? Folks that are in the woods.
Well, a gentleman that from up north, I don't remember the name of the town, is a Finch prying factory.
That's right.
No, International Paper.
International Paper.
International Paper up there. They've got a woodlot up there, and 2 loggers that were in there. They said they thought they saw something, but they didn't want to admit it.
Right.
And then they had found what looked like a human footprint, but only 3 times bigger.
Yeah. Okay.
And we just had a picture sent to us. Now here's and it's over in that same area where I was telling you about with the guy from Connecticut with the camp, where we found the 2 different casts.
Yeah.
Where that goes downstream, those swamps empty into a place where it starts going downhill on the slope. So you got washed gravel and sand here. Mm-hmm. It was the most. I told my wife, I got the picture home on the table. I said, "It's too perfect."
Yeah.
Who has ever gotten a perfect track?
Yeah.
I said, "There's one thing missing in that picture." And I said, "We've been on enough investigations together. What's missing in that track?" And it's just like you bought a foot, put it in the sand, and like this.
Yeah.
I said, "I don't care if that's washed sand or not."
Yeah. There's no.
I said, it's not, number one, it's not deep enough.
Yeah.
But when they walk, it kicks the sand up. There should be a hump.
Yeah.
Of sand. This was picture perfect. I said, that's too picture perfect. Where's the rest of it? It's in that washed sand. Where's the rest of the tracks?
Yeah.
But this guy said, I don't care if you. I said, it's your track, your cast, and your story.
Yeah. The more I talk to folks, the more I hear about the lumber industry and how that's affected the Bigfoot over the year. And
they're teed off at mankind to start with. Look out west and all the places where they just stripped the mountains, and they finally passed a law where you got to leave so many miles wide, then you can strip that top to bottom and leave so much. Yeah, that's why they did it.
Yeah. So I got a very strong interest to look further and further into that. So that's where I think I'm headed towards is really getting into some big company stuff and find out what kind of impact they're making on the Bigfoot. Right. Out in the woods and in their natural habitat, because they're destroying, where they live. All right. Any questions for me?
No, sir. But I'm glad to see a younger man getting into this stuff. I mean,
great.
There's every time even at the festival, there's so many young kids. I'm talking 9, 10, 11-year-old kids. They're firm believers to start with. Yep. Of course, they were brought up with if their parents believe it. And they've seen enough stuff on TV that I tell these kids, we need young blood. We need people with ambition and whatnot to get out there and do this. I wish, to be honest with you, John, I wish I had a money backer like finding Bigfoot people do. Because I'd be doing this full time. I wouldn't be busting my hump every day in the orchard on my hands and knees and on ladders and everything else.
I bet.
But I'm glad to see it. And I like Bill was saying before he passed away. I mean, it's with my lifetime. He says, I hope the hell I get to see one. He says, before I'm totally blind. And well, he didn't get to see one, but he's got casts from Massachusetts, Connecticut, and stuff. Wow. Nothing I was involved with it, but he does have 3 of the originals that were my cast. So he's got the originals. I've only got copies. Yeah. But it's been a very interesting journey all the way down the road. And somewhere along the line, like I said, we're being prepared for something. I could go on all day about the male, the female, and the youngster that were supposedly shot up in Alaska. And the military was sent in there purposely. And my son, who was in the Marines, in the Special Forces, said there were 2 Marines, and I want to say 2, there was 5 guys who went up there anyway. And they shot the female and the youngster in this humongous meadow because the people were being bothered in the village, finding people that were torn apart. Right. Wow. And he said that the woods was a quarter mile away. He said they just erupted with trees, smashed. And said this thing come out. He said it supposedly took 12, 14, 16 shots to put this down. It was a male.
Wow.
Next thing you know, there's supposedly there's a Black Ops helicopter in there with all 3 bodies. They went out west.
Wow. Wow.
This is the guy in the special forces, because my son said, he said, I wasn't part of it, but 2 of the men in my group in the Marines were involved in that.
Wow.
You hear all kinds of stuff like this, but he said, don't you ever repeat that.
Yeah. Yeah. I'm going to have to look that up because I want to know more about that too.
If I remember right, there's something online. It's just like that deal out in Vietnam when those kind of gunboats that went up these tributaries. There was 2 of them. There's a guy in Whitehall that will attest to this. I don't know if he would to anybody else, but they thought they were shooting at enemy forces, and they were shooting at them, and their bullets, your bullets, were coming back at you.
Oh wow!
And one of these, I forgot what kind of boat they call them. They're all mainly all metal with big 50 cals on them and all this stuff. And he said one of them was sunk, and this is several people that attested to this, and said the other one finally there was just one ship, if I remember right, one ship, supposedly, and F-16s were called in, F-16s, F-14s, whatever they had at the time, shot a missile at this thing, and the missile come back at them. They had to outrun their own missile.
Oh, really? Wow.
He even named the ship that had come off of the aircraft carrier, but I can't recall that.
That's interesting.
But there's all kinds of stories like this that are coming from people that are my age and older than me.
Sure.
It's, a lot of them a lot younger than me, but I said, well, I wasn't there.
Well, I appreciate your time. I really do. It means a lot.
Well, I really enjoyed it.
Yeah, I enjoyed it more than you know. I'm going to go back and study it a little bit because there's some certain topics you brought up and things I want to look into, investigate deeper and more. But I'd love to keep in touch.
Yeah, I hope you do.
If we could make a trek into the woods, I would love that more than anything.
You know how many people in a year's time asked me? I said, I'd have a group so big we'd have to get buses.
Yeah.
Everybody wants to do an investigation.
Yeah, I'm not far. If you want to go out for an hour, I'll go for an hour.
One thing I learned and we learned as a group.
Yeah.
If I find a castable track.
Sure.
Don't ask me where I got it.
Yeah.
I'll send you 50 miles to the east, west, or whatever. Because I don't want a bunch of people with guns. Yeah. Because, all kidding aside, there's $1 million reward. Look at that big scam there that Matt Moneymaker's buddy made down there in, what was that, Louisiana or someplace? They supposedly killed a Bigfoot.
Really?
They paid him. One was a correction officer, and I forget what the other one was, another kind of law enforcement person. We got a Bigfoot, it's in a freezer. They went on, checked. Yeah, they found out what it was after they paid the 50 grand. It was an old... It was a mask with an old fur coat with goat guts, sheep guts, all kinds of animals. Animal stuff. They made their own.
Unbelievable.
And I said, well, that's Matt Moneymaker and Finding Bigfoot and all that stuff. I said, yeah. And boy, he must have, oh my God. Well, Steve Coles. Yeah. He used to be part of our group, and he heard that. They wanted him as an investigator. Next thing you know, he's knocking on our door wanting to get back in our groups. And, you go with them. Yeah. Yeah. It's just crazy all the way around. But Steve is still into it. Steve calls if you Google his name or whatever. Yeah, yeah. And I'll tell you something off film. Okay. All right. About him. Well, thank you so much. You're entirely welcome, and I thank you. Thank you. All right. Well, thanks for watching, and we'll see you next time.